Pirates, vampires, merfolk, dinosaurs, 400 pros, and the three of us welcoming you to Pro Tour Ixalan 2017 here at Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm Rich Hagan alongside fellow co-host and anchor Maria Bartholdi. Anchor seems appropriate given we've got Pirates and Mr. Paul Chion from Inside R&D. Paul, great to have you with us. Thanks for being here. So let's start with you, Paul. It's the first Pro Tour of a brand new season. What are you hoping to see here at Pro Tour Ixalan?
I'm looking to see if maybe the standard metagame has shifted a little bit. This is the first Pro Tour in a while where, the standard's been out for about a month since the release of Ixalan, and I'm looking forward to seeing if anybody's actually maybe come up with something unique outside of kind of the 3 or 4 decks that we expect at the tournament.
And Maria, I know how much you love limited play, but again, because of this shift in where the Pro Tour is happening, this is not an unexplored limited environment. What are you looking to see?
Right, that's exactly it, Rich. I want to see if these pros have any new kind of strategies or takes on the format that people haven't already explored in Ixalan, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, and from my point of view, well, it's the kickoff not just of a new individual contest for Player of the Year. Paulo Vida Dama de Rosa begins his attempt to hold on to that crown, but 37 teams make the start line for the 2017 to 18 Pro Tour Team Series, won so thrillingly by Masashi over Genesis at the World Championship just a few weeks ago. So much to look forward to. But Maria, we've got Paul, one of the great limited minds. So why don't we explore for a few minutes behind us? As you can see, the players are starting to sit down towards their draft pods. So let's talk a bit about limited.
All right, Paul. So people have already played the set, but let's widen out for a second. It's tribal. What does that mean when you sit down and draft?
Well, what that means is in this set, one of the most important things in the format is to kind of settle into the correct tribe. That is very, very important. When you see, kind of late cards like River Herald's Boon or Shaper's Apprentice, you have to dive in, because if you don't, you can get severely punished. You can't just take good cards and hope to get there, because oftentimes the one vampire draft in the whole pod will just get, all the rewards and, usually end up going 3-0.
A lot of players have told me they prefer either vampires or merfolk. Why do you think that is?
I think in those two colors, the payoff cards are, just super important, and no other deck really wants those cards. When you get a card like an Anointed Deacon, you're just like, okay, well, this is just going to be very good in my vampire deck. Whereas when you have cards like, Territorial Hammerskull, which goes into like basically any deck with white, those cards are just generically very powerful. Whereas the synergies in Black-White Vampires and Blue-Green Merfolk specifically are very, very powerful.
So we talked about it already up here. These players might have already done hundreds of drafts before this PT, as opposed to maybe like 25 or 10 at a normal Pro Tour. What does that mean for these people when they're sitting down?
Again, I think it's just really important to be able to identify the open tribe and move in as quickly as possible. Sometimes it's difficult, but there are some key cards that you can open or get past that kind of put you in a direction, and I think that's like the most important thing.
So I have a question about if you're not looking to draft one of the established tribes. There's a couple other outside synergies in there. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Okay, so outside of the heavy tribal synergies, there is also an archetype that Christian Calcano has kind of made a little bit famous, and that is the Auras deck. What you want to be doing in this archetype is drafting a bunch of one-mana evasion creatures, kind of like the Blightkeeper, or just as many one-drops as possible. Then take a bunch of Swashbucklings or one with the Winds and just try to get people that way, because the removal in this format a little clunky. So being able to just go one drop into Aura can go a long way.
Do you think the Explore deck with something like Lurking Chupacabra is a real thing?
I think that's not really an archetype that you're looking to go into, because there's basically zero tribal synergies. I think you can sometimes stumble and get there, but more often than not, you're probably going to have a pretty high fail rate, because you're just, when you're looking through the pack and you see a bunch of green and black cards, let's say you even have 2 Lurking Chupacabras, oftentimes you're just going to be looking at a bunch of these like Merfolk and Vampire synergy cards that you don't want in your deck.
So can you talk just briefly about some signpost cards where if you're sitting down and drafting and you see these, that's your signal to the archetype is open and I'm moving in?
Okay, so one of the biggest cards, for example, in Merfolk, River Herald's Boon. That's a common. Oftentimes when you ask somebody, hey, I have a sick Merfolk deck, the first thing somebody's going to ask you is, well, how many River Herald's Boon do you have in your deck? 2? I've
Get
seen
out of
better,
here.
Right?
5.
So that is one of those cards where if you see that card 4th or 5th pick, you're like, all right, Merfolk's probably open. I'm going to take this card, even though I started, taking red and black cards to try to move into the open tribe. Another thing is like in Vampires, if you see like a 7th pick, Anointed Deacon, for example, that could be a sign that Vampires is open. And that's also the type of card that's really powerful if you're Vampires.
Okay, thanks so much, Paul. Well, the team series is something we're looking forward to seeing this weekend is kind of kicking off for the first real time, and BDM is here to tell us more.
Thanks, Maria. Earlier in the week, I had a chance to go to a couple of the playtest houses to just get an idea of what some of the big powerhouse teams are going to look like. And you are going to see a lot of Team Channel Fireball on the video content this weekend. Just start off with the return of the captain, Luis Scott Vargas. Luis, of course, spent the year over here at the desk with us and in the booth, but has returned to play, and it's going to be really exciting to see what he does. Remember, when he stopped playing, he was on a streak of 3 consecutive Pro Tour top 8, something that hadn't been done in almost 2 decades on the Pro Tour when John Finkel did it. So this is, someone who stopped playing at the end of one of the best seasons in the history of Magic. We're going to see Josh Arthur-Layton and Martin Yuza on Sunday. We're going to be replaying their Hall of Fame induction ceremony, which happened last night, and I got a chance to MC. And it was really a beautiful ceremony, some great speeches, and really just always great to see the players, their families, their friends at that ceremony. Ben Stark, Pro Tour champion, Paulo Vitor Dama de Rosa, coming off of his Pro Tour win and his Player of the Year season. And people are giving Mike Sigrist a little bit of guff because on this team there's 5 Hall of Famers, and it's always fun to make a joke. But you know what? Mike Sigrist is someone who's won the Player of the Year. There are 3 former Player of the Years on this team. They're play testing with Team Ultra Pro, and we're not going to see as much content with Team Ultra Pro. And we were really focused on CFB when we did our video piece, but you'll see them in the background. And this is another team that is just really spectacular. Even Flock, Sam Black, Matt Nass, the secret weapon, right? Like, Luis is very clear in his 3 top 8s during that season that Matt Nass is a huge part of that. He's like, maybe I'd have 4 if I'd listened to Matt Nass and played his deck at the first Pro Tour of the season. Alexander Hayne, the Pro Tour champion. Sam Pardee, one of the really big players right now. He's really just gaining steam and, reminiscent to me actually of when Luis Scott Vargas first started getting those top 8s and started putting together a great run. So Sam is someone I'm really excited by, and of course another Pro Tour champion in Steve Rubin. The other house that we went to see was also 2 teams, and MTG Midcard is a team we checked in on. And I had a chance to talk to Yamwing Chun. Now you'll remember him from the top 4 at the last Pro Tour, and I had a chance to talk to him this weekend about, the play. We really got a little bit inside with him, and look forward to that at some point over the weekend. But Li Shi Tian on this team with his incredible resume, someone who's coming onto the Hall of Fame ballot this year. So we may be talking about him again at the first Pro Tour next year. Jason Chung, Hao Huang Shan, Kelvin Chu, their secret weapon, and Eduardo Sajgalik. I had a chance to talk to Eduardo, and I said, when I qualified for my first Pro Tour, it was playing a deck that was designed by Kelvin Chu, even though he didn't know I was playing his deck. So anyway, and then the other team in that house with them is Team Connected Company. And Connected Company is Christian Calcano coming off of his first Pro Tour top 8, Andrea Mengucci, the World Magic Cup champion, Javier Dominguez coming off of that crazy run at the World Championship that got him finally to play on Sunday, Tomohiro Saito, Jeremy Dezani, and one absent player who I know we're all wishing him and his wife Monica heartfelt congratulations, and we wish you were here, but we're really glad you're not, because it's the birth of your son. Congratulations. This ends a streak for Raf of consecutive Pro Tours attended that goes back to the 90s. So, but the best possible reason he's not here with us, and I know Connected Company will power on without you. So that's a quick look at some of the teams that we're going to be talking to this weekend.
Thanks so much, BDM. Well, we are getting ready for the very first draft of Pro Tour Ixalan, and Rich has got a peek at our feature pod for us.
Yep, okay, so let's get to it. Let's show you who's down in the feature match area. It is a stonking pod. Didn't think we'd need stonking this early in the season, but we do. So here we go. There you see we've got Yuki Matsumoto. He is one of the most successful drafters in the world. 76% win rate for him. He is sitting in seat number 2. Let's see who else is there at the table as we head on round. There you see on the other side, you're looking at Ken Yukihiro. There's Jeremy Dezani sitting there, the Pro Tour Theros champion in the Harry Yuya shirt. We've also got Brad Nelson, you caught a glimpse of there, sitting. Anton Jonsson, the Hall of Famer. gamer who got all the way to the top 8 of Grand Prix Phoenix last weekend. He's here for the Hall of Fame ceremony. And there, as we head round the other side of the table, that is Zachary West. He is an RPTQer. He is playing in his very first Pro Tour, and he has Pro Tour champions and players of the year all the way round the table. So an absolutely phenomenal pod to kick us off. And we are going to start with Brad Nelson, Team Genesis, Team Masashi. Maria, it looks like we are ready to get going. So let's head you down for the first draft of Pro Tour Ixalan.
Hello there and welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Ixalan. That's Simon Gertzen. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. We're happy to have you along as we work our way into the first draft of the Pro Tour. Of course, Simon, this is one of the most tense moments for the players as all that preparation, all that work has finally come to a head. And now it's time to sit down and actually play Magic. So let's head down. It's time for draft number 1 here from Pro Tour Ixalan. Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Ixalan. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Simon Gertzen, and we are just about ready to draft here, Simon. Normally we draft a little bit later in the day, you and I, but we get to cover one here today early in the morning at the Pro Tour, and we are going to kick things off with the Bard himself, Brad Nelson, playing in his 34th Pro Tour. He plays for Team Genesis, as you can see on his shirt there, and they are ready to go. So let's get into this draft here and see what Brad's find is in his opening pack. Looks like a fairly strong pack here, Simon. There's a Mavrin Fane as his rare, and there was also a couple of reasonable spells to go along with it in the form of a Skymarch Bloodletter and a Pious Interdiction.
Quite heavy on black-white, the whole pack. So if he takes a white or black card, he will be passing white and black signals to the left. This will already give us an idea of his preference for a certain archetype. Maybe if he thinks vampires is so strong that he wants to be black-white, or he prefers a card like Savage Storm, for example. Even Fiery Cannonade is a good card. Yeah, lots of good cards in this pack, but he is in fact going to go with the highest upside card. That's Mavrin Fane Dusk Apostle. You can see on the right-hand side of your screen. Works very well in the Vampires deck. It supports the theme of the deck with a lot of 1/1 tokens and ways to kind of make those a bit bigger. And this pack's a little bit weaker for him. There was an Ancient there. Mm-hmm. As well as the Dustborn Skymarcher, the Deathless Ancient. So the two uncommon vampires are okay, but they're not great. You're not looking to pick those up early. So now it's already the question: do you highly pick those vampires because of your first pick and because of the danger of sending the wrong signals, or are you staying open with a card outside of vampires?
Interesting choice here for Nelson early. He's going to go for the cheaper option of the two vampires, the Dustborn Skymarcher. It's actually a beautiful follow-up to Mavrin Fane as well, because it's cheap flyer that he can get on the battlefield, and then the turn that he casts Mavrin Fane, he can immediately start making 1/1 tokens. Yeah, this pack does not look great for Brad, does it?
And I was going to mention that because his second pick, he got a vampire, but he didn't get a vampire signal. He got a card that didn't really tell him anything about what his neighbors are doing. So if he just sticks to vampires now, he might be stuck in a corner where he is drafting a weak vampire deck to compared to the persons to his right.
Yeah, now his other option out of this pack isn't super great, but it is pretty good. It's Tishana's Wayfinder. It looks like Brad's going to try to stay the course here, though, and take the Queen's Bay Soldier. You know, one thing that could be happening is that could have just been a weak pack, right? It doesn't have to be a signal thing at this early, and it's just sort of one data point for him. But now, once again, we see another reasonable green card here. There was a Kumena's Speaker as well as a Deeproot Warrior in this pack, and really not a lot for Brad as far as the vampires.
Exactly, and Deeproot Warrior, one of the best green commons. There's also a Commando Speaker, so Milfolk could be open. If you take Deeproot Warrior, you're happy to play it in any green deck, and if you're getting the Milfolk payoffs, you're very happy about it.
Yeah, so he may be moving in here. He could have moved last pick, but decided to stick to his guns. But now he's seen two packs in a row that really didn't have much for him and had some decent Merfolk cards, and it looks like he might be moving over here. There's a Pounce in this pack, which is a fine card. Doesn't go super well in the Merfolk deck, however.
No, I think Pounce has basically declined steadily over time, but it's still a card that you're happy to play one off. It does sometimes act as an instant speed removal spell. You do have to be a bit careful with it. It's not cartouche of strength.
Right. He is going to go ahead and take Pounce. Now, this does put Brad in a somewhat awkward position here. Oh, did he take the Raptor Companion?
It looked like it. It would. Yeah, he took the Raptor Companion at the last moment.
Okay. Well, it looks like he may have taken the Raptor Companion there, but let's see what he takes out of this next pack. You know,
Martial Vampires, I don't think Vampires is open.
I think he's going to need to bail on that plan here pretty quickly. Now, he can still play the white cards.
Queenspace Soldier is just not
as we say that, he takes the Queenspace Soldier.
It's just not a card I'm excited about. I'm not excited about third picking it. I'm not excited about fifth picking it.
Huh. This is getting a little bit awkward here for Brad, who's still hemming and hawing between two very different strategies with really no overlap whatsoever.
Yeah, maybe the next packs can give him some idea of what's open. And I'm seeing powerful blue cards, or at least it seems to me that blue has a bit more substance to it.
Yeah, I agree. There's a depth of desire there, playable card. He's going to take it here. Yeah, so Brad is very much in the middle here, and look at that. You can see he's starting to sweat a little bit because he needs to start to nail down where he's at. One of the things about Ixalan is that the playables count can actually end up a bit short on you sometimes. And
exactly.
That hasn't been true of late. So it's one of those things where, you know, Brad's going to be feeling the pressure to dial in on a color pair here, and he looks like he's going to pick up a Ruthless Knave.
One thing is playables, the other thing is curve. You want your creatures, you want to have a high 2 and 3 drop count, and I think in that regard, Brad is doing fine. He just needs to make sure he finds a color that he actually wants to be in.
Yeah, it looks like he's settled on black at this point. He could pick up a Deadeye Tormentor. And then he's got some cards in white. He's got some green, maybe some...
It's very unclear at the moment where he'll end up with that.
This is going to be interesting when we get to the review period after this first pack to get an idea for where he moves them. So if you're watching along at home with us, you're going to get a chance to see all of the cards at once as he looks at the pile of cards, but how he actually orders them and puts them is going to be a big clue for us about where he thinks this draft is going.
What I expect is that Brad will be black for sure, just to have that this number of playables from this pack, and then he will just look for which color is best to pair it with.
Yeah, black did seem to be the most open color. He wasn't getting anything amazing, but he got a reasonable number of playable cards in that, so I would agree. I think he's going to try to stick to that. The question is, what color does he pair it with? Because it goes okay with blue, it goes okay with white, doesn't go particularly well with green, as they were talking about at the news desk before we headed in. And here we go. Let's take a look at what he's got. There's a Tormentor. Yeah, black really is the dominant color pair. You do see that Raptor Companion, as Brad had bailed on green at that point. He just took a short little toe dip there and said, okay, maybe not.
And it is entirely possible to draft a black-white deck that's not vampires. It will just not be the best black-white deck you can draft in Ixalan.
Yeah, I think that's where he's going here as well, exactly in that. I mean, at this point, he's black-white pirates, but also has a decent number of vampires to hopefully support that Maverin Fane that he's got too.
Yeah, and in theory, we could still see blue-black pirates with a bunch of treasures, and then you can splash whatever powerful cards you open. So he does have some bailout options.
Another thing that we're likely to see here is, you know, Brad did not pass any good white cards outside of that very early packs, and he didn't pass that many black cards. So this second booster pack could really fill out a lot of the good cards, and then he may need to kind of hang on for the ride for the third pack.
That's always an option. Even if your tribe is getting cut, you do get that one pack downstream from the left where you get the reward cards.
Yeah, the one awkwardness is the Pious Interdiction. That's a very second pickable card for the person to his left, and that may have put them in white. All right, can't get a great look here, though. I see a Territorial Hammer Skull from kind of far away. There was also an Emissary of Sunrise, I believe, at the back of the pack. There we go, getting nice and tight. But it looks like he wants to take the Hammer Skull here.
And there's not a single black card in this pack, so he's kind of forced to already decide if white is going to be his second color. This is something I was talking about with players. Even if you are in a color combination, you still rely on getting those payoff cards, and there are only 8 packs opened at the table.
Also impressive stuff here. You know, the Hammer Skull, considered by many to be the best common in the set, just full stop. And, you know, he just took it over a very playable uncommon. It shows how powerful the Hammer Skull really is. Let's see what Brad... Oh, no. This pack looks horrendous for him. His choices are the 2 keepers in his colors, a Blight Keeper or an Encampment Keeper.
Both of which he doesn't want.
Right.
And what we might be seeing, and that could be dangerous, of course, is that the amount of white and black cards that he passed, especially after his first pick.
Yep. Yeah, he's going to have to take a Dusk Legion Dreadnought, which is fine. You know, that's a playable card, and you know, it's just not a good sign.
It's
right?
not what you're looking for.
Right.
It's not. It's you're gonna say, okay, I can play this on 5. It's fine, but it's not the second pick I wanted.
See if things look up a little bit here for Brad. Well, there's a Skullduggery, so already a much better playable than he's gotten out of the other 2 picks. And there's also an Arguel's Bloodfast, a card that I've seen some people bringing out of the sideboard to good effect, but most are reluctant to main deck that.
Yes, this is an aggressive format, which is why I like Skullduggery so much. Yeah. It works really well with his curvy deck, because that's the strength that he has. He will almost always curve out well with the cards he has.
Right, because he prioritized the Queen Space Soldiers and those lesser power cards, but
he can make something work there, even without vampire synergies. Just 2-drop, 3-drop, maybe a Hammer Skull attack. Play one of the many combo tricks there are.
This is a similar pick to that Brad had to face early in the draft with his second pick. This is Duskborn Sky Marcher versus Deathless Ancient.
This time Anointed Deacon also in the pack.
Feels like he doesn't really have critical mass of vampires to make an Anointed Deacon great.
Yes, and it also does make the Deathless Ancient quite a bit worse, although it's still a 4/4 flyer for 6.
It is, and it looks like he's going to go ahead and take the higher power level card here and go with the Ancient.
Yeah, I like that pick because he already has a Duskborn Sky Marcher.
Yeah.
White is probably his secondary color, so activating that card can be a bit awkward.
Is that a Lightning Strike?
It seems almost impossible, but it looks like it.
Maybe it was something else.
It's the Crew, okay.
Lightning Recruit, okay, well.
Which is also a great card.
Also a really good card, actually, now that I think about it. But for Brad, he's got a Direfleet Interloper pulled to the front. He also could take a little bit of a shot if he wanted at the Conquistador.
I wanted to ask about that because it is kind of late in the draft, but his deck isn't tremendous.
No.
So maybe just getting 2 or 3 of those could make his deck a little bit better.
I agree, yeah. Well, this is the 3rd Deathless Ancient that Brad has had the opportunity to pick, but there's also a Mark of the Vampire in the pack for him.
So we've been talking about auras a lot when we were talking about Ixalan, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Brad pick it here.
I wouldn't either, although it does look like he's not going to this time. I've seen players fall on either side of the fence as far as the auras go, and Mark of the Vampire, you know, is the most powerful of the sort of 3 Grixis auras that we see drafted and drafted.
Yeah, also I think you don't want that 1 aura in your deck because it means you do get punished, but you don't get the big payoff. I think you want to have the 3 or 4 aura deck if you want to go that route.
Yeah, one of the big, you know, people really like One with the Wind because it's cheapest and super, super powerful for its cost, but also it turns out it shares a color with Dive Down, which has proven to be very important late in the format, where it's harder to protect your creatures in black.
Yeah, and you trade 5 for 1 in the mana department.
Yes. Another Direfleet Interloper at the back. There's a few sideboard cards. Wow, a Tempest Caller still in the pack too. Brad kind of paused when he saw that. I assume that ship has sailed, but he's just going to have to pick up the Interloper. But man, did you see him stop on that?
It's a card you don't expect to see. We did have a small sign that Merfolk could be open, but he had no real way to move into it. So that's just an unfortunate spot to be in.
Not much for Brad here. Cobbled Wings or maybe a sideboard Looming Altasaur. I've actually find that card to be pretty darn decent out of the sideboard.
7 toughness is a lot.
It is no joke. When your opponent plays a charging monster store, you have to do something. Because when you're playing a bunch of Queen Space Soldiers, those do not get the job done.
Triple block is...
Yeah. I mean, I've found
option.
myself in that spot a lot of times, and it's just, you know, cross your fingers.
So I don't hate Brad's position going into pack 3 because he does have a decent power level. He doesn't have the synergy payoffs, but he does have individually strong cards, and that's actually a gift. Anointed Deacon that late in the pack.
Sure. Yeah, he'll pick that up for sure. I don't think he has a ton of 5s either, so nice pickup for him.
I think what he wants most, apart from bombs and removal, of course, is just some token vampires. Make some 1/1 lifelinkers that you can pump with your Deacon that will trigger your other tribal effects and also return your Ancient from the graveyard.
Yeah, great point.
And he has two Ancients now, so those cards should be really high on his list.
Yeah, those Deathless Ancients basically are his late game at this point. And they can be a bit of an engine in the late part of the game as well. So that will be important for him. Like you said, though, he does have one of his major bases fairly well covered here with his curve. You can always fill out the last slots in this last pack, but he's not desperate, right? He's not coming in like, I only have 1/2 drop,
It's much better to be in a position to say, I'm happy about removal and a few, let's say, token creators. He could use some more creatures, I think, because he doesn't want to play the non-vampires if he doesn't have to. But he's not in the position where you're going into pack 3 thinking, okay, I have only 1 2-drop. If I don't get 3 more 2-drops, my deck will be bad just because of that.
Yeah. He's got 3 2-drops at the moment, so he could pick up a couple, but yeah, not desperation time it by any stretch. He also has a playable 1-drop, which you don't always get. So, effectively 4 early drops already, and, he could pick up a couple more to round that out. But you do sometimes find yourself in a position where you're going into that third pack reviewing like this, and then you go, wait, I have 1 2-drop? Like, uh-oh, and you're willing to take cards like Queen's Bay Soldier really highly comparatively just to make sure that you get on the board.
And Brad got that out of the way very early on. So his third pick already spent on a 2-mana 2-drop vampire, which is nothing spectacular, but in the end, if you're lacking the 2-drops, you will have to maybe pick them over higher value cards.
All right, let's get this third and final pack of our first draft here from PT Ixalan underway here for Brad. Here it is. Let's see what he's got. Bishop of Rebirth. Wow, there's a contract killing in this pack too, Simon.
Yeah, a bunch of, similar to his first pack, a bunch of black-white cards that he would be happy to have.
Paladin of the Bloodstained is a card he'd play for sure. Now, I'm inclined to go with the rare here, the Bishop of Rebirth. Very powerful card, can be a late-game engine. Seems like a pretty easy pick.
Yeah, he's in white-black vampires. I'm getting a bit concerned. He's basically ignoring the removal in every single pack, and I would like to see him pick 1 or 2, but not in this pack. I think Bishop of Rebirth, similar to his first pack decision, just take the rare. You're going to play it. Your opponents don't get it. It's not Sun Titan, but it's a very, very strong card.
Yeah, it is a must deal with as well. There's a Skymarch Bloodletter. That's one of my favorite commons in the set. And he's got a few other playables in here as well. The Shining Aerosaur and another Paladin of the Bloodstained as well.
Yeah,
but Skymarch Bloodletter is significantly better.
It is better. The Paladin would work well in his deck because it does give him two vampires to work with. There is a chance that he will wheel one of those though.
Yeah. But Bloodletter, Simon, I love that card.
It does so much.
Yeah.
It even does the thing that makes it really good is that it has the vampire creature type.
Yep.
But it's good in any black deck.
Exactly.
Which is something that's not so easy to find.
Yeah, there's actually not that many cards that kind of cross the ranks like that. Ooh, a Vanquish of the Week here. Geez, the cards are really flowing for him now. Each pack has had many options for him, though this one seems pretty straightforward as well. He doesn't have a Vanquish of the Week yet, and he's light on removal, as you said, so an easy.
Yeah, and we've been talking about how clunky the removal is in this format, and Vanquish of the Week is actually one of the rare exceptions.
Yes, yeah, relatively efficient. I mean, you're still often trading, 3 for 3 as far as mana goes, but there's some really notable exceptions that this hits that are much higher. I just mentioned the Shining Aerosaur as an example that this kills, and that feels really bad. Anointed Deacon's also another one.
Yeah, it actually kills a bunch of 5-drops, and it is instant speed, so it punishes combo tricks, River Herald's Boon or Auras. Well, if you have it early enough.
Yep.
Okay, a bit of a letdown.
Yeah, Heartless Pillage looks as what he has pulled to the front. There is another Raptor companion if he is concerned about getting those last couple of 2-drops. It just has no synergies.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Heartless Pillage as a main deck card, but he has a lot of 2-drops. So maybe if he values especially the treasure token, it could make his main deck.
You know, he is going to run 2 6-drops in this deck, and that treasure, you know, can really matter in that scenario. Things have certainly cooled down a bit here for Brad as far as the packs go, but that's about where it should happen. I mean, he was getting really good options there for the first, 4 picks of the pack, so he can't feel too bad about it. He's considering a Rallying Roar, and I'm sure what Brad's doing is taking a pause here to say, how many actual token makers and or 2 creatures do I have in this deck?
And the answer is not too many token makers.
No. Mavrin Fane is his main engine for making tokens at the moment, but that can be a fragile one and doesn't always come together. Wow, a Dark Nourishment here for Brad. There's also a Vampire Zeal, another card that he would love to have in this deck.
Yeah, but he already picked one earlier, so I think he has enough combo tricks with the Zeal and the Skullduggery. But
no,
this shows us how much players value curve and being aggressive and just not having dead cards or uncastable cards in their hand.
Yeah, we were just talking about trading Vanquish the Weak for a more expensive card. It's very hard to do that with Dark Nourishment. The life total bump can really matter, but you pay for it dearly. It costs 5 mana. You're usually killing something.
I would like Brad to pick Legion's Judgment here. I think he doesn't have to main deck it, but it's a card I just want to have against those aura strategies, against the big red-green dinosaur deck. And if you don't have access to it, it just feels like you're not fighting the same fight.
I agree. Also, you'll note that Brad took a close look there at Dive Down. Wow, that is a late Vanquish the Week for Brad here. Yeah. He took a look at Dive Down as well as Water Trap Weaver. And that was Brad making mental notes. Remember, we're playing in pod here. Right? This is not the same thing as you'll play like a league, for example, on Magic Online. These players are going to be playing against each other. So how many dive downs are floating around is really important to Brad. And look at that. He got the Paladin of the Bloodstain back.
And that's a huge deal because it does make his whole deck better.
Yeah, that is a great pickup for here. It makes Mavrin Fane better. It's a good 4.
He doesn't have too many 4s, so it fills a spot in the curve. It gives him two vampires. This card will pull its weight. I think it'll be one of the best creatures in Brad's deck.
He did not wheel both, but that's okay. He got to demystify that he can just take for his sideboard here. But like I said, these players are going to be paying close attention to the cards that they're passing just as much as the ones that they're taking, given that, they're going to be playing these people.
And Brad Nelson on one of the good or one of the best teams, testing teams on the Pro Tour, he will be very aware of that because they will have discussed this. And
for sure,
if you do all your testing or drafting on Magic Online, it's more about I just want the best deck. I don't care how my neighbors' decks look like.
Exactly.
And this is a very different situation.
But, having an idea of how many dive downs are out when you're playing the black-white deck that's trying to, strategically remove creatures, or how greedy can I get with waiting on this Vanquish the Week? Should I main phase it? This is important information to have. And on top of it, Brad's deck came together okay there, right? This is not one of those ones where you're like, wow, you just got in the right lane and the packs were kind to you. But this is far from a train wreck.
No, absolutely not. And it looked like he was in danger of that happening, but in the end, black was open, and that was all he needed. White was not something that he absolutely needed to be the black-white vampire. Like, he needed one open color, he found it, and the late cards that he picked actually showed us how open black really was. Vanquish the Weak, when there are 5 or 6 cards in the pack,
yeah.
I've not seen that.
No, that does not happen very often. So it looks like Brad got paid off for noticing that early and for sticking to black. The white was kind of hit or miss. He opened some good white cards, a few rares that he's actually going to get to play in his deck, but a few of them he had to slip by. The Pious Interdictions and those type of cards had to go by. But hey, that's just draft. That's just the nature of the beast. Overall, I think his deck came out pretty good.
Very well. Yeah. I'm happy with. I would be happy playing that deck.
There you go. So we'll see if Brad's happy playing it as well. We've got more booster draft action, though. The players are now going to take a break to build their decks. And, of course, that means that we're going to show you our recorded one. We're going to have that and more after these messages.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the news desk. Behind us, the main floor is just finishing off their draft. They then get 25 minutes to build their decks. But never fear, we've got plenty to bring you between now and the start of round one, including every pick of every pack with another drafter from our feature table. Now, we've chosen Yuki Matsumoto, who a lot of you, I think, won't know a lot about. Well, he has 3 Grand Prix top 8s, 2 Grand Prix titles. One of those was an individual win in Chiba in 2015, and then a team limited Grand Prix title in 2016. He's part of Team Final Last Samurai with some very, very good Japanese players. So why don't we know too much about him? Well, it turns out that he has a big disparity between his constructed play at the highest level and his limited play. Constructed and the Pro Tour in general ran about 57%, which is fine, but not spectacular. At limited, he is unreal off the charts. 62 wins, 19 losses, and a draw in booster draft. That's his lifetime career stats for GPs and PTs. This guy can navigate packs like almost no one we've seen. Well, now we're going to see. Here's every pick of every pack for Yuki Matsumoto.